Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and peace and blessings be upon our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear brothers and sisters, I salute you all with the salutation of the people of paradise. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Welcome to your program, The Choice, with me, Hatim Al Abd Salam, and my honorable guest, Ustad Ahmed Al Matani. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad Ahmed.
Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Hatim. How are you?
Fine, how are you today?
Not bad, not bad. A bit tired, but I'm sure that through the discussion we're going to have a lot of energy.
Inshallah, inshallah. So, Ustad Ahmed, today we have another important topic, and maybe it's a bit different than what we spoke about in the previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But the purpose of this show is to cover many elements of life.
Correct.
So today we're going to talk about culture and globalization.
Very sensitive. Yeah.
I have no idea what it means, but inshallah, the ball is in your court.
No, we'll do it together. Yeah.
Inshallah.
It's a very sensitive topic, and it's also a very broad topic, to be honest. It covers a lot of things. So we try to focus on some of the items and the important elements of this important element or topic.
Inshallah. So we start in the very beginning with the definition of culture. So what is culture?
There are so many definitions actually for culture. One famous definition is it's a way of life of a group of people, a specific group of people, where behaviors, beliefs, values, symbols, they accept, and generally without thinking about them. They're passed, to the next generation, from, one generation to another. This is, like one common definition, or the most common definition. Another definition also used is culture can be defined as the sum of total of the learned behavior of a group of people that are generally considered to be the tradition of that people and can be transmitted from generation to another generation.
Yes.
So you can see that the focus here on behaviors, beliefs, values, symbols, and people accept all these elements, to be part of their culture.
So even belief can be part of culture?
Yes.
In what way?
For example, that's would be very clear when we talk about the different types of cultures. But culture is a very general, term. A very vast, term, and it could involve sometimes some of the belief system, because sometimes you don't have to have a religion to have a belief system. You believe in an idea, you believe in a concept, and it becomes part of your culture.
Okay, so are there many layers of culture?
Definitely, there are so many levels of cultures. The first one is the national level. When we talk about a nation, it's very simple. As a whole. Another one is called the regional, culture, and that means when we have ethnic, linguistic, or religious differences that exist within one nation. That's called a regional culture. Also, there is also another element or another layer, which is the gender. Culture. Female. Males, and nowadays, we have another gender coming to the floor, which is, homosexuality. People, like I was applying to some universities, in the States, and they were asking me whether I'm female or male or something else.
So they actually have that.
Yeah,
that option.
They're not very open about it yet, but at least they sort of recognize it, indirectly. Saying something else, So I said I'm not something else, I'm
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, I'm a male, and I'm very proud of that,
Alhamdulillah.
So, And of course, it doesn't mean that we are against women, but just this is the way God created us, And also, we have what we call generation. This is the generation level. And basically, this is talking about the differences between cultures in terms of what generations. Like what, our grandparents used to believe in, to act or to behave or to
Their way of life.
Exactly. And the new generation. Okay, so like sometimes they call them the Y generation, the new generation nowadays, or the technology generation. So that's also another level when we talk about culture. Also, we have what we call the social class level. And this is something to do with educational opportunities and differences in occupations. Okay?
Yeah.
Social status, that comes from your education, from your jobs, and so on. Okay? And also, we have what we call the job level, also when it comes to culture, or corporate, level. And this is actually associated with a particular culture of an organization. So basically between the employer and the employees, so that we call it, corporate, what level of culture. You can see that, there are so many different levels when we talk about, culture. Yeah.
Can language also be part of culture?
Yeah, this is part of what we call it the regional level. Nowadays, if we want to elaborate a little bit, I'm sure that, young people will like this, okay? But the hip hop, culture, for example,
Yeah.
when it comes to speaking, in English, a lot of people think that if you sound black, for example, or with the hip hop, style, you have a lot of charisma. You're becoming, you have a swag, they say. So even now you find people who are not black, for example, would opt to sound black because it's part of the trend, and people would think that this is, something cool. They use the word cool to sound black. And, there's a very funny say, in America. They say, once you go black, you never come back. So I don't know whether this is true or not. But you see, linguistic, culture is also another element that, people get influenced by.
The other day I was listening to the radio. There was a program in the Arabic channel, and the presenter was talking about this new language that is being created by the young people, which is a mixture between Arabic and English.
Arabish, maybe.
Arabish, yeah. So, and he said that this is a phenomenon that is in all countries. They are facing the same thing. And every single year, the Oxford Dictionary introduces new words to the dictionary because of this trend that is going on. Like words, for example, like tweet, like selfie, like, things like that. So it's happening everywhere, and the way forward to it is to either to propagate more in terms of the language, the original language, and to preserve the language, or to find a way to to create something which can be used for the young people.
The issue when it comes to cultures is that if parents and people who are in charge of that particular culture do not play a very important role in making sure that kids or children appreciate their culture. So they give them, the choice to adopt, and there's nothing wrong with adopting from different cultures. Well, what I'm saying is that first of all, you need to know who you are.
Yes.
Okay, and then decide if there's something wrong, then maybe you can take it out, and then you can adopt something new. But unfortunately, you find a lot of new generation, like youth, they are not familiar, or they don't have the knowledge about their own culture, which is a disaster. When you go and travel to another country, what do you want to do? You want to know about that culture, correct?
Yes, and people will definitely ask you about your culture.
Exactly. So now imagine, like an American or somebody from the West, coming to Oman. And all what he sees is another version of America. So there's no value for this kind of experience.
Yes.
The same thing for us. We go to America and we want to know about, the American culture, and then we find that there's another Omani culture there. That would be a good thing, to see the influence of Oman there. But what I'm saying is that, first of all, we need to start by knowing and comprehending our culture, and then we can go to other cultures.
And appreciating our own culture.
very, very
Because
much.
that's what makes us unique.
Definitely. And I think, I shared this story before, but I want to repeat it again, that the more you respect your own culture, okay, the more people will respect you from other cultures. And this has actually happened to me when I was traveling outside. People would appreciate you when you propagate, when you talk, when you're very proud of your culture, especially if your culture has very good elements and very good things, to share. Of course, there are other issues with some cultures, they propagate your, wrong ideas and so on. But I'm talking about the good things,
About your culture.
about your culture. So you should be very proud and you should propagate, that culture. And we are ambassadors actually for that culture.
You remind me when I was in college, I was sitting in the canteen and with one of my friends, and then one of the Omani students, he passed by in front of us, and he was walking as a cripple. And I said, Subhanallah, this poor young man, he was born a cripple. And my friend said, no, he's not crippled. It's a way to look cool. It's a type of walk that you do, imitating some of the celebrities, and it makes you look cool. And I said, Subhanallah, and you have full limbs, and then you're acting like a cripple. And then the following days, later on, the same person came to the college. He had a plaster on his face. So I thought, what happened now? He said, no, this is just imitating one of the celebrities again.
Wow.
So it can have a very strong effect on us, but we have the choice.
Yeah, we always have the choice.
We want to take something which is good.
Yeah.
And I always keep the doors open, that if there's something good out there from other nations, why not? We would love to take it.
For sure.
But don't imitate something that disrespects your culture, doesn't represent you, and it puts you out of place. I mean, you'll have to wear a different hat every time. So if you're back home between your people, then you have to act
in a
different way.
Yeah.
And then when you're abroad, then you put on another hat, and then you're a different person.
Yeah.
So you live a life of contradiction.
Yes. And this is very, very sad, because as we said before, the role of parents, the role of schools, the role of people who are responsible for propagating, the main principles of our culture. And when I say our culture, I mean, the religious culture, because this is something that we need to emphasize more than the national culture.
Yes.
I mean, we are not here to say that, the national culture or the culture that people believe in or practice in a certain community is always wrong. But at the same time, there are some, wrong, let's say, behaviors or wrong ideas within every culture. Yeah?
Definitely.
So, but we always need to emphasize, first of all, the religious, culture, and then we go to the national culture.
So is there a big difference between the national culture and the religious culture?
Definitely, yeah. The religious culture deriving all its principles, values, beliefs, and behaviors, name it, from religious scripts. In this case, for example, for us, from the Quran and the prophetic, saying.
Yes.
It's very clear. Everything is derived from the
sources.
The sources. And this is why we'll not have issues, because the source is one. And people will have to act accordingly.
Yes.
But when it comes to a national culture, definitely this depends not only on the religious, sources. In addition to that, people will have their own traditions, their own flavors, their own, understanding and interpretations for situations. And they will be mixed with other things which are sometimes contradicting, or clashing with the Islamic or religious values.
I need to interrupt you here and ask you, is the religion against cultures?
If we say this, in a broader, term, definitely no. Because cultures have a lot to offer. And there are a lot of beautiful things in every culture. Almost, name any culture around the world, you'll find a beautiful thing, in that culture. But there will be certain things that religious cultures or religion will find not in match or in line with the teaching of that particular religion. And in that case, religion has to be put on the top. And then, we look into the national culture. So there are a lot of things, that we can. For example,
Give me an example of something that is aligned with the religion culture and something that is against the religious culture.
Unfortunately, let's talk about the concept of marriage.
Okay.
When it comes to choosing the right, let's say soulmate.
Your better half.
Yes. Okay. Parents got involved in.
By the way, congratulations on getting married.
Oh, thank you.
Where's the halwa?
Yeah, you already had your share. Okay. Okay. And we cannot eat anything now anyway. So anyway, the concept of marriage is based on morals, okay, on values. If the person is really a moral person, okay, and in terms of behaviors, in terms of belief and so on, then definitely we should accept that person without any questions.
That's religiously
correct. When it comes to religion.
Culturally,
for example, the culture will have sub elements, okay, that will emphasize more than the main concept of marriage.
Yes.
That you need to have somebody who's religiously aware, morally aware of this kind of religious, I would call it, important relationship. Okay, but in some cultures, unfortunately, there will be more emphasis on things that you don't control. For example, your color, okay, your ethnicity,
your tribe,
you cannot, your nationality. I cannot, if I'm born, in Oman, and there is a culture that does not support the fact that, to marry Omanis to that culture, then, what should I do? I mean, should I kill myself?
And sometimes even the restriction is only members of a family can marry from that particular family, and no outsiders can marry.
Exactly.
And this was very common in the past. You'd find couples from the same tribe.
From the same tribe, or may even from the same family sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes some people are very strict that they will say, no, you have to marry from the same family, and this is not a discussion, topic, just that's it. It's settled down. It's an order, and you have to deal with it, So, yeah, I mean, there are some issues that sometimes with the national cultures that will not be in accordance with the Islamic, culture, and it creates a lot of problems and issues, and this is what we are suffering from nowadays.
So, what happens when you come across these differences between the national culture and the religious culture? How do you reconcile between them?
Yeah, first of all, as we said, we need definitely to set priorities when it comes to this. What comes first, Hatem? Religion. Okay, that's it. Period. And then we look into the culture that we have.
Yes.
And we look at it, and we take everything good from that culture, which is also in line with what? With Islam, with religion. Okay? There will be some elements which are not affecting directly the religious factor or the religious, culture, which is fine. We can accommodate. Okay, maybe they are not discussed in details or something like that. So it can be accommodated. Because Islam, as a religion, also a religion that adopts, from other cultures, from other religions, and so on, as long as it doesn't harm or doesn't bring a lot of harm into the floor or to the people around us. Okay. So when it comes to the idea of how to deal with that, first of all, we need to have what we call culture awareness. Okay. Because first of all, as we said, people are different. This is a fact.
Yes.
We're not the same. We might be Omanis, okay? Or we are Omanis, actually. Okay.
I don't talk about yourself.
Okay, we're Omanis.
To me, I'm an Omani.
Okay, we're Omanis, okay? But we are different. in so many ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you're, for example, from Muscat. I'm from the countryside.
You're more charming.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that. You know. Okay. So there are differences. So we need to have what we call culture awareness. We need to make people aware that these differences should not make us apart. Okay. We need to learn how to appreciate differences, because differences are something that you know. Imagine. Let me put you in this. Let me give you this situation. Okay.
Before you give me that situation, it's important to mention the verse where Almighty Allah says in the translation says that all people, we have created you into males and females and made you into nations and tribes,
Yeah.
so that you would know one another
Yeah.
or recognize one another. Verily, the best among you are the righteous ones.
Exactly. So that's you know, definitely a very good evidence, you know, for the idea of religious culture comes first, and then, you know, other cultures, you know, come, you know, after that. And, you know, it's all about, you know, piety. It's all about, you know, being a righteous person. It's not about, you know, your color. It's not about your tribe. It's not about your nationality. It's not about your last name. It's not about your name. Okay, this is something to do with your belief system. If you're fully connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're trying to follow the principles, the teachings of your religion in the right format, in the right, you know, pattern, then, you know, you're saved. Okay.
Yes.
And you know, like back to the idea, back to the situation that I wanted to imagine, Hatem, you know, that you walk around and everyone looks like you. How would you feel?
I'll be shocked.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel special.
Yes.
Their life wouldn't have a special taste.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very boring.
You see, definitely, it's going to be very boring.
Yes.
Okay, and also you will not see the value of yourself, because, you know, sometimes when we see different things, okay, when we see different people, we will recognize our values sometimes that we could put or bring to the society.
Yes.
Okay, but if everybody looks the same, everybody acts the same way, everybody, you know, talks the same way, we're going to have a very boring life, and we will not see the contribution that we are making, okay, to life. So this is, you know, one thing. So we need to have, you know, a cultural awareness in order to do that. There's something called, you know, clustering cultures. So sometimes what happens is that, you know, within the same culture, there are subcultures.
Yes.
Okay. And so what we need to do is we go into these, you know, subcultures, and we try to see what is common, okay, among these cultures. We don't focus only on the differences, and from there we try to take what the lead. Okay, we don't start with the differences. When we start with differences, we always have clashes. There are so many things actually that we share. Okay, but we tend to forget about them. And this is an issue. This is a big issue. Why don't you look, first of all, at the things that we have in common?
The commonalities
Yes,
between us.
and then after that, you know, look at the differences. And as we said before, having differences is not an issue. Okay, we need to learn the art of appreciating differences. Okay, and unfortunately, this is very sad to be mentioned, but in a Western culture where maybe sometimes religious values are not emphasized and so on, people in these cultures were able to accommodate all these differences, you know, not to a very perfect, you know, level. While here, when we are sharing a lot of values, a lot of, you know, like beliefs and principles and so on, we have found it very difficult to accommodate the very tiny differences among each other, because we look only at the different side of the story instead of looking at the similarities or the things that we have in common. And this is something really sad, you know, that we have to address, and we have to do something about. And also, we need also to determine the extent of global involvement. Now, we cannot live without, you know, having that kind of a touch with people from different cultures. I mean, even if you live in Oman, you know, you might be encountered with a situation where you meet with somebody from a different culture. So we need to to really focus on the idea of that people have to understand that we're not living anymore in a small community.
Yes.
Okay, we're living in a global community. People learn from each other. People try to interact and learn from each other, especially with the technological tools and devices that we have. There is no way that you can isolate yourself from other cultures. So I think we need to really learn the art of getting immersed in other cultures and learning
with one
yes,
another.
exactly. That's one thing that we need to emphasize when we talk about
Okay,
culture.
Ahmed, we need to take a short break. Inshallah, we'll come back and continue with the topic of culture and globalization. I just wanted to remind our listeners that this is a live show and it is repeated at 7 p.m. in the evening, and the show is going to be uploaded on the cloud, on SoundCloud, at Oman Radio. You can listen to it tomorrow, inshallah. See you after the break, Ahmed.
Thank you.
In our modern day, values have changed, and many of us became confused with the choices that life has to offer.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear listeners, welcome to your program The Choice with me, Hatem Al-Abdussalam, and my dear guest Ahmed Al-Matani, and today we're talking about culture and globalization. Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed.
Alaikum salam, Hatem. Thank you.
So we covered some aspects of the culture, Ahmed. I just forgot one point, which is some of the negative aspects of culture that affects our life.
Well, there are certain culture which are very narrow-minded, and they're not willing to accept and take, from other cultures. So they might be very fanatic, when it comes to differences. Okay, and this is an issue actually. And if we are not very open-minded to differences and people who are coming from different cultures, then we will end up having a lot of clashes, a lot of issues, and at the end of the day, we'll have a lot of wars, a lot of issues, and the world will not be peaceful anymore.
Yes.
Also, another thing is sometimes what happens is that because we don't talk a lot about our culture. Yeah,
it's like a taboo.
Yes, okay. We don't, address a lot of the challenges, issues, and so on. Then people will just, tend to be ignorant about, the very simple, basic, items of their culture.
Yes.
And this will cause a loss in terms of identity. And unfortunately, especially among a lot of young people, we have this idea of cultural loss, okay, and we are having a lot of issues when it comes to people identifying themselves. And if you go around now and ask somebody who's from the young generation about something related to our culture, okay, he will not be able to answer very simple questions, okay, about the culture. But if you ask him about, let's say a singer or, an actor or an actress, okay, they will be able to tell you the whole history of these people, okay, which is a problem. So these people are becoming confused, and which will affect them in a negative way, psychologically, socially, and sometimes medically. This is why we have a lot of people who are having or they are attempting, the idea of committing suicide. This is something which is really sad, this is happening here in Oman, where people don't know who they are, and they are lost, and because they try different things, and then they discover this is not the way they are, and they will remain confused, and they might do anything, which is really sad.
I think in all conditions, Ahmed, both extremes are not really healthy.
Correct.
So if you go to the extreme where you don't know anything about your culture, you don't have an identity,
Yeah.
and you imitate every single thing that comes in front of you, that is bad.
Yeah.
And also, if you are very extremist in your views about your culture, even though you might be wrong, and they might be contradicting the teachings of your religion, then that's also wrong. And I would give some of the examples of some of the things in the culture that maybe we should look at them and reconsider.
Okay.
Mentioning the names of our female relatives. Yeah, like mother or wife or daughter. People are ashamed now and then to mention the names of their female relatives. While the Prophet, peace be upon him, has mentioned the names of his wife
Yes.
and his daughters. And this is something which is something to be proud of, not
Yeah.
something to be ashamed of.
And we need to honor them anyway.
And we need to honor them because
Yeah.
they are our mothers, wives, sisters, aunts. Okay, something else about the culture that maybe we need to reconsider is attending your daughter's wedding. Yeah, so this is also something which is cultural.
Yeah.
If you are going to attend your son's wedding, and you would be happy on that day,
Yeah.
you
It should be the
at
same.
least treat your children the same and attend also the daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
The other thing is that when we have the marriage ceremony, which is called the malka,
Yes.
okay, that is the official religious, whether it is in the religion or in the eyes of the state, of the law, you have already got married, and this woman is lawfully your wife.
Correct.
But you're not allowed to see her, you're not allowed to talk to her until the wedding. While the wedding is a ceremony which is something which is cultural.
Additional.
Additional.
And, yeah, and
but
it's not the core.
The real marriage has taken place where
After.
you are in the mosque and you have agreed to
Yeah.
the contract and the terms, and the woman is your wife.
Correct.
So this is something that is still there and still going on, and maybe we should reconsider in some of these things.
You know, like, I don't know if it is still practiced, but, you know, I will go even further to talk about, you know, one kind of, let's say, tradition that used to be practiced a lot here in Oman, where you cannot see your wife. Okay, she will have to wear a veil,
A veil.
okay, the whole time till she becomes pregnant.
You're kidding.
No, I'm serious. Okay, this is here in Oman.
I'm glad
Okay.
I didn't get married
Yeah,
in that
okay.
community.
So,
But we respect
yeah, we
people's
do
cultures,
respect, yeah, but still, you know,
but
as
it's extreme, I think.
it's too extreme. And the other thing is that we need to understand, as we said, okay, culture should not clash with Islamic teachings, as you
Because
said.
this is something that Allah has made lawful for you.
Yes.
Your wife is lawful for you.
Yes.
So if you impose something which is against the human nature, because you got married in the first place to refrain from looking at women outside and enjoy the looking at your wife.
Yeah.
If you can't see your wife and you can't see the women outside, what are you supposed to do?
Well, I mean, for I don't know if we want to go into a lot of details, but, you know, they just wanted to check, you know, the manhood level that you have. So when she is pregnant, that means, you know, you can now celebrate, you know, your union with her.
What if she doesn't get pregnant? Then
Then, you know, they wait for 1
You're
year.
doomed.
Yeah, then, you know, they might put a lot of pressure on you to divorce her, which is something really funny. But I'm serious, you know, I know some families used to practice this. I hope that they are not practicing it anymore. But this is something happening here in Oman.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
I would like to remind our listeners that our lines are open and they can share their thoughts and ideas. They can either agree with us or disagree with us. You're more than welcome to call. Our numbers are 24602058, 24602058. And this is a live show. It's going to be repeated in the evening at 7 p.m. And the episode is going to be uploaded on the SoundCloud Oman Radio tomorrow, inshallah. Now, Ahmed, let us move on to the next part of the equation, which is globalization. Now, this is a very big word, and maybe it's very new to many people. What does it exactly mean?
Well, globalization is actually a process of international integration arising from the interchange of world views, products, ideas, and other aspects of cultures. This is one definition, you know, used to define globalization. Also, it can be also defined as a process of interaction and integration among the people, companies, governments of different nations. And this is a process actually driven by the international trade and investment that aided by the information of technology or information technology. So actually, it is a recent concept. It's like in the 70s was introduced as a concept. It used to be also there in the past, but as a term, globalization, it was introduced in the 1970s.
Why do you think it was introduced in the first place?
Well, a lot of people have different views about, globalizations. A lot of people think that it's political and economic at the same time. There's a kind of hidden agenda politically and economically in order to emphasize or to make sure that, certain goals are achieved.
Yes.
Okay. By melting all the boundaries and the borders, from countries and making, the world, seem to be like one culture.
A small village.
Yes. It seems to be a very interesting thing because with all these differences that we have, we also have issues.
Yes.
And what it seems to be is that, when we don't have any differences, we're going to live, a beautiful what? Life.
Yeah.
But remember the example that we said at the beginning. Imagine that everything exactly the same. What's going to happen? We're going to have what? A very boring what? Life.
Yeah.
And there's also another important question now. Which culture we have to follow?
Which culture should prevail?
Exactly.
And be the
yes,
common one.
because it would be very difficult to have all these cultures, merged together and form one culture. Because every culture has its own boundaries, its
Ahmed,
own principles.
Let aside different countries. We are in one country.
Yes.
And how many different cultures do we have?
We have so many. Yes.
So many. The diversity is amazing.
Yeah.
From Musandam till Salala, you have, mashallah, different cultures, different slangs, different languages, different behavior, different type of food, even clothing, the looks, the way people act. It's all totally different.
Yeah. And imagine that, we're going to just say, what? Everybody going to act this way. This is, first of all, based on what? That's another issue. What are the criteria? What are the conditions? And then who's going to decide on that? There will be a lot of issues actually when it comes to this.
And it's violation of your human rights and imposing on your freedom.
Yeah.
Because everyone is born a free person, a free individual. And
Correct.
they have the right to choose their own way of living.
But as I said before, it was a move actually to see if there is a way where we can melt all these differences that we have, which make us apart from each other and we cannot accommodate each other. But in reality, if you think about it, if you read a lot about this topic, you will find that most of the main purposes of globalizations are economically and politically oriented, okay, and sometimes even culturally oriented, and to the extreme that sometimes people might lose their culture and their identity, okay, or their system, okay, of a state, or sometimes the economy and so on, because we'll talk later on about all these differences, but there are usually three main areas when it comes to globalization: economic globalizations, and also we have political globalization, and also we have what we call cultural globalization. And under cultural globalization, we have religious also globalization. So this is the general term. When we talk about economic globalization, it means we're just having one economy system, okay, that people have to follow. Because like in Oman, we have a different system of economy, how we trade, how we,
and
interact,
the
currency
market,
and so on,
stock market and everything.
Okay. That's a system, and people are happy with it. Maybe it might not be the right, approach, all the time.
But it works for us.
Yeah, it works for us based on the culture, based on the people's taste and the background, ethnicities, and so on. So that system actually tries to accommodate all these differences in order to come up with a system that operates perfectly. So imagine now, how, I don't know, I cannot digest the fact that, we could have one system that can operate the whole world. Okay. I mean, how would that possibly happen? Do you think this is possible? I mean, one system. I mean, within one culture, within one country, we have so many.
What we can say is that it never happened in the past, and it's not going to happen now, and it's not going to happen in the future, because everyone has a different direction, different way of life. You cannot impose something like that to the entire universe.
Yeah.
And maybe some countries, they tried to impose that, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I'm yet to see a country that have implemented this, and it is functioning perfectly. Even for example, you would have the European Union now. Yeah, they're facing a lot of trouble.
Yes,
they're facing a lot of clashes among themselves. Yeah, if you look at United Kingdom, so many times they've been threatening to get out of the United Nations.
Yeah.
The
United
European Union.
Yeah, and actually they didn't join, actually, if you think about it. It was not an actual, a joining process.
Yes.
Because, everybody wants to really show their identity, the way they think, and so on. And this is something beautiful, actually. I mean, having differences is not an issue. We need to emphasize this, okay? I mean, a lot of people need to understand that we need to coexist, okay? We need to understand that these differences should add more values, okay, to our lives, okay, than just making us apart. Now, when it comes to the good things about economic globalization, according to a lot of studies, they say when we have economic globalization, prices will be cheaper. Okay, because, there's one system that controls, the whole thing. So nobody can, have its own system and create, problems.
There's no monopoly.
Yes, exactly. So there's the prices will definitely go down. This is according to them. And also, there will be also a lot of availability for the products. Now, if you just rely on your local economy system, okay, you will just get, this one. And if they are not around, then you'll have to wait. Yeah? Yes. But with the globalization in terms of economy, the products will be available at any time. So you'll have access to that one, and you can easily have that access to whatever you want. Of course, the idea of competitions, when you have companies coming from outside to Oman, okay, you just mentioned the idea of monopoly, for example. But when we have companies coming from outside, that will force other companies that control a situation in a particular context to look into the prices, look into the services that they offer, okay, and maybe offer, better services with a very reasonable rate. And this is something that very good about, globalizations. And also, when you interact, with other people from different cultures, okay, you learn also better ways, okay, in terms of how to handle your economic situations. But if we don't have, if you just, talk to people from the same race, from the same country, you will not learn a lot about, what is being discussed, outside, your context. Yeah.
Yes. Now, these are some of the advantages of the globalizations. Yes. I'm sure there are also disadvantages of globalization.
Now, this is, when it comes to economic globalization, what if the country is not ready to participate in these competitions? They will struggle.
Yes.
And their economy will collapse. And then there will be a domination, actually, for those big companies to control the scene. So back to square one.
Yes.
Okay. And there are a lot of, young companies, especially now with the moves that, the government here in Oman.
The SMEs.
Yes. They're trying to promote, the concept of entrepreneurship and so on. And definitely people will have to start, small.
Yes.
And if they cannot compete actually with
the big
these,
sharks,
then what's going to happen? These, small businesses will shut down, and then we're not going to have any competitions.
That's
and
right.
Then back to square one. Also, when you also have economic globalization, sometimes big companies will try to force certain rules on small companies, and then you don't have a choice. Actually, then the freedom of speech when it comes to this, will be taken away. They will tell you either you follow our rules or not. Okay, although they're trying to set up, one system.
That's right.
Okay, but in reality, there will be one company at the end of the day to dominate the scene, and that company will try to what to put the rules. Okay, make sure that these rules are implemented and so on. But now we need to look at one important issue here when it comes to globalization, which is the idea of degrading cultures. Whenever you have, definitely the very strong culture will dominate the scene. You agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So indirectly, we are saying that there are cultures which are not up to the level. And who decides on that, actually? That's a very important question.
That's a very important question.
So is it because some people have the power, then they will definitely be what the most dominant what cultures in this say. So we are not propagating actually the idea of accommodating what difference. It's all about power. If you don't have power, definitely you will not be recognized, and you will not get into this formula of globalizations. So this is when it comes to the idea of economic globalization. Of course, there is another type of globalization, which is the concept of political. Let's talk first of all about the culture globalization. Okay, now this is something that we have seen a lot. Having all these big companies from the West coming to very small communities here in the East, for example. Now you find, McDonald's next to Kaaba, for example, next to Mecca. Okay. For example, you'll find, very, international brands that are actually not supposed to be in a certain culture. They are in that culture. And we talked also about the concept of language, for example.
That's right.
This idea of Arabic, if you want to call it, speaking with this kind of, half Arabic, half English, okay? I mean, there's nothing wrong in speaking in English, okay? And that's what we are doing now. We're speaking in English because it's the lingua franca, okay? It's the language, used for business and so on. But when people started to think, okay, that there is something wrong with their own language, then we have an issue. Because people will think this is a sign of modern life or modernity, okay?
And this is what is happening today, Ahmed, is you see many families emphasize their children to learn the English language,
yes,
while they don't have the command of their mother tongue, which is the Arabic language, which is shameful, really, because there is no harm in learning more languages, but you have to,
master first of all your own
language first, because if I commit a mistake in the English language, then I don't feel it's a problem because it's not my language.
Correct.
But if I commit a mistake in the Arabic language, then I'm to be blamed. Because this is my mother tongue and I'm supposed to be good at my language.
Exactly. And it just really sad, when sometimes, because I'm a teacher, and sometimes, you will be encountered with the students who are asked, to fill out, their form, the admission form in Arabic sometimes.
Yes.
And, they cannot spell words, very simple words, okay? And I said, are these really high school graduates? And they come into college to learn and so on, and they cannot spell, very simple words. This is really sad. And we're talking about, writing things in Arabic. We're not saying they are doing them in English, okay? And believe it or not, they cannot. If you ask them to express themselves for 2 minutes, for example, in Arabic, okay, to talk about, themselves or about anything, you'll be surprised.
It would be very challenging.
Yeah, it will be very challenging, and you'll be shocked, okay, with the very low competence, linguistic competence when it comes to mother language, in this case Arabic. This is very sad. I mean, we've been advised to learn other languages. In fact, this is one of the principles in our religion that, we should learn.
And the Prophet,
Yeah.
peace be upon him, recommended people to learn
Learn
languages.
language. So
But we never jeopardize our own language.
yes, and that's an issue. So when it comes to food, for example, now like with these globalizations ideas, when it comes to food and so on, people think that if you go to McDonald's, for example, you are actually a modern person. But if you go and eat, for example, in a very traditional restaurant,
Laham bush.
yes, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Okay, that and
You're not civilized.
you're not civilized.
Or if you sit on the ground and eat with your hands.
Yeah, and so there's a problem with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going and trying, food from different cultures. But what I'm saying is that, if we start thinking that there's something wrong with our own culture, then we have and I want to emphasize here again, I'm talking about religious culture. Religious culture comes first, and then, the national culture, as long as they don't clash. Okay, so this is really sad. Okay, very, very sad. For example, now sushi, for example, a Japanese, dish, okay, is found in Germany, okay, and and I all say, German sushi. What's German sushi? I mean, this is, I mean, can you imagine, you go to America and you say American matchboos, for example,
Or American halwa.
or American halwa, I mean, it doesn't fit, I mean, yes, you can always try food from different cultures. I'm not saying that, and you need to propagate, for your own culture and outside the country. But what I'm saying is that, the culture has lost its essence, okay? Its values, its principles, by having this kind of, global view that, we need to have only one culture that that should dominate the scene.
And I think, Ahmed, the people in the Middle East should be very thankful and grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having a culture.
Yeah.
Because we have an identity and we have roots for that identity. And we're sticking to those roots. But many of the Western countries, they don't have a culture. Because there's a lot of immigrants from different nations who came together under one roof and formed a country.
Yeah.
So they don't have something which is in common. They might bring their own culture from their original country, but they don't have a unified culture as a country.
Yeah.
But in the Middle East, at least we have a unified culture within the country. Like the dress code, the way we talk, the tradition, the hospitality, the way we greet. All these things are, unified among all of us, with all the differences that we have among ourselves.
Yeah, it's really sad, what's happening actually now, that this fear, okay, that has been propagated through media about, your own culture. That, if you are not from this culture, or you're not up to this culture, there's something wrong with you. Yeah, this is very common. Look at the way we dresses nowadays. If you go around nowadays, okay, sometimes there are some young people, okay, who would dress, okay, in a Western style more than the Western people would dress.
Yeah, they overdo it.
Yes, they overdo it, okay? And sometimes even you cannot recognize them. The way they dress, the way they talk, the way they interact, it's just...
And this actually happened to me. I went to one of the health centers, and the guy at the reception, he looked very weird. He had a ponytail, he had an earring, and I thought he was not, Omani.
Yeah.
So I spoke to him, I said in English, I have an appointment. And he said... أنا عماني. He spoke to me in Arabic, and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't want to embarrass him and tell him that you don't look Omani.
Yeah.
But the way you propagate yourself, the way you look, speaks out about yourself.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about yourself. I'm not criticizing any particular culture, but you have to have at least the minimum standard that would reflect your culture, so that people would identify who you are.
Yeah, I mean, this is
So if I say if I say good afternoon or hello to you instead of saying salam alaikum to you,
yeah.
don't blame me, because there's no way I can identify that you're
Especially
local.
if you're extreme, when it comes to the
Yeah.
way you dress, the way you look, and so on. Definitely, that would indicate that maybe you're not from the same culture and so on. I mean, even with the Western cultures, for example, okay, you see how much a change that happens to the core values of a lot of Western cultures and so on. Maybe we talked about this before, but just to give you an example, I know that maybe this is maybe not the right time to talk about it, but let's just give an example. We were talking about the hip hop culture, for example. Now, we don't want to talk about the idea of allowed or not allowed. That's another discussion by itself. But I just want to talk about the idea of how the whole concept of hip hop culture started. It started as an art to talk or express the pain of black people, for example.
Yes.
Okay, it was an art. It was a piece of literature.
The way to express
Yes,
themselves.
yes. Okay, they went through a lot of struggle and so on. But look at the way like now hip hop has been presented to the world.
Yes.
Okay, it's all about rhythm and also degrading women. Okay, look at the topics.
Cursing.
Cursing. I mean, within one song, you might hear like thousands of cursing words, and and the funny part,
And it's very degrading.
It's
That's
very
the thing,
degrading,
it's
yeah.
very degrading.
Yes.
And the funny part, you would find young people driving a car with the music so loud, listening to this hip hop music with all these curses,
Yeah.
and they are imitating them, singing along with the song, and they don't understand a single word what is going on.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, they would be shaking their heads,
Yeah.
repeating the words,
Yeah.
and they don't understand what they're saying.
It's all about the rhythm, okay?
Yeah.
But that's it, and this is another issue that we have when it comes to the idea of globalization, when it comes to culture, is that sometimes the dominant culture will try to make sure all the principles of that culture will be implemented and take a place, okay? And this is an issue because
Yeah, but Ahmed, don't you notice that the Eastern world, especially, when we want to adopt a new culture, part of globalization, we overdo it.
yes,
We don't do it the same level as it is done in the original.
yeah.
How it used to be done. But we overdo it. Everything we overdo it.
Simply because, if you're lost in first of all, within your own identity, what do you expect? Okay, you're shaky in the first place. If a person is shaky and not confident about who or she, or who is he or who is she, okay, then there's a problem. Okay, that person has to really reflect. First of all, look at your culture. First of all, try to understand it, and if there's something wrong, maybe you can just discard it and get rid of it and forget about it. But what happens is that people don't know anything, and I blame first of all the parents not having this kind of dialogue, talking about the cultures, why we are Omanis, for example, what is the value to be an Omani, and so on. Okay,
And what makes us unique
Yes.
as Omanis.
like now Oman is used as an example of a peace, landmark, if you want to put it this way. And if this by itself is enough to make us very proud to be Omanis. But look at the way we act actually sometimes, unfortunately. And you go to complexes, commercial complexes, and or even sometimes outside, and you'll be surprised that our young kids and
Some
youth,
of them.
some of them are acting in a way that they don't know anything about their culture, and they don't have any feeling
And interest.
and interest or any sense of a pride that they are Omanis. As we said before.
And it goes even beyond that. They'll be criticizing their country, criticizing their culture, criticizing everything that has to do with this country.
Yeah.
But I would advise people that they need to travel.
Yes.
They need to go and explore different countries, and only then they would appreciate what they have in their
Yeah.
own country. Many of the students who went abroad for their education, when they were there away from their countries, they felt homesick. And
Yeah.
they really missed their culture, they missed their food, they missed the people, they missed everything. And they really realized that how important is your beloved country.
Well, this is if we talk about our cultures, in a conversation or something like that. But unfortunately, now parents have an issue actually with the culture. They don't talk. They think that when you are culturally aware of your culture, then there's something wrong with you. You're reactionary. You're out of date, and so on. So these kids, when they travel outside, actually they are already well prepared, actually, to accommodate or to embrace such cultures, and this is very sad. Okay, so actually parents are to be blamed. Schools also are to be blamed, for not doing the right job. If a student sees his teacher, for example, acting in a very funny way, for example, or no, we will not say a funny way, but in a way which is actually clashes with the traditions and the teachings of your own culture, then there's something wrong. Okay, we are not doing the right job when it comes to making people aware why they need to be proud of their cultures and their teachings.
You would experience this in some of our young people, and I experienced this in our family, that sometimes we test them and we ask them how to greet in the local way, culturally.
Yeah.
Ask about the news
Yeah.
and so on, and sometimes we would give them a pot of coffee
Yeah.
and cups and tell them to pour, and they would be holding the cups in the left hand, and they are shaky, they don't
Yeah.
know how to pour. And I don't blame them, I blame us
Yeah.
for not transferring this knowledge to them, for not feeling that this knowledge is important,
Yeah.
for allowing for globalization to kick in and take over our children.
Yeah.
So we are to blame first, the schools are to be blamed, the society, the community, the mosque, all these areas
Institutions.
are responsible for educating and propagating. I mean, a lot of cultures out there, like say for example the Indian culture or the Chinese culture, they're very proud of their culture, and no matter how educated they are, no matter where they go around the world, they would stick to their culture, they would stick to their values. They would be very modern, they'd be very educated, but they are very proud of being Indian, they're very proud of being Chinese, they're very proud of being Japanese.
Yeah.
You don't see them feeling ashamed of eating, for example, with the chopsticks.
Yeah.
Or, for example, for the Indian community to eat spicy food, because it's part of their culture and they're proud of that. And they're well known around the world that this is who we are.
Yeah.
So when you're craving for spicy food, the first thing that comes into your mind is Indian food.
Yes.
And it's a good thing that this is labeled to them.
Yeah.
So we need to be also unique in our own way.
Yeah.
We need people also to imitate us. Why are we only imitating other people? Why don't we transfer this culture
True.
to other people?
Exactly.
And teach people the Arabic language, teach people our heritage of hospitality. I don't think today, I don't know if I'm exaggerating, I don't think today in the Arab world you would find more hospitable people than the Omanis. We have this in our DNA.
Yeah.
Why don't we transfer this to other people?
Yeah.
Why don't we make this as part of globalization?
Yeah.
Because it's something good.
This is back to the idea, like which power you have, to bring to the table. If you're not a powerful nation, then expect what? That the other powerful nations to invade your culture. And this is what happens, Power plays a very important role in deciding whether we should follow this particular culture and leave that culture. And this is...
I would disagree a little bit
Yeah.
in that. I would give you a very good example. Look at the Sikh community, from India. No matter where they go around the world, they never change. They will always be the same. They are proud of who they are, and they go to they're minority, by the way. In many countries, they're minority, a very, very small minority. And guess what? They force the law to change for them. Like they wear the turban, yeah? And if you go to many European countries today, they would allow them to wear them as a pilot. You wear the turban. As a policeman, in working areas where you need, for example, to shave your beard, they wouldn't shave because they are respected for holding on to that value and tradition. But how come we can't do the same? How come we let go very easily when we are influenced, and we let go of our culture? The easiest thing for us to let go of is our culture.
Very, we said that, because first of all, it is not well structured in terms of being propagated, Hatem.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, it is not done, through parents. This is a fact, I don't want to generalize, but how many of us, had the chance?
Are busy working.
Exactly. Okay. Schools now. All what we are so concerned about is what content, teaching content.
Yes.
Okay. We don't give a chance to our students, for example, to know more about their culture. Okay. Why, for example, you belong to this culture? We don't have this kind of conversation most of the time.
I think yesterday when I came to your college for iftar, I noticed something very good that you did in the college, is that you gave the chance to the students to organize the iftar. Sometimes you need to give them a practical example of how it is done. So give them, delegate to them, let them do it, let them learn. They will make mistakes, but there is nothing wrong by making mistakes. They would learn and they would feel the value of that culture. I'm sure the students yesterday, they valued the culture, they valued the tradition, they did very well. They actually did better than
what the teachers used to do.
The teacher used to do it,
yeah. It's very true, actually. Students are very creative. Kids in general, very creative. And the other thing that we need to start implementing when it comes to let's say fighting the negative consequences of globalization is the idea of educating our kids and students how to question things. Okay, because we don't want them also to accept the culture the way it is.
Yes.
We said at the beginning there are some issues, some unwanted practices and so on that we have in our cultures.
Yes.
But if we shut them down from the beginning. If your kid comes to you and said, why we have this in our culture? And you said, hey, don't talk about it because it's like this, okay? And if you want to be a man, you need to follow it. Look at the connection. It's following it is a sign of manhood. So that's an issue. So we need also to make, we train our kids. Dialogue and talk to people and make sure that, I always, ask my students to question things.
Yes.
Okay, because I want them not to be followers. I want them to be leaders. First of all, for their own lives. And then when they ask a lot of questions, they tend to understand why, for example, we do this, why we follow this, why we do this, why we don't do that, and so on. And then why we are Muslims, for example. Why, for example, we are unique, for example, when it comes to this, okay? Why, we are advised to do this, why we are encouraged not to do that. And you would be surprised with the level of intellectuality that the students have when it comes to thinking. Because we have this underestimation culture that the teacher knows everything and we're going to pour all that knowledge into your head and you have to accept it.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. I remember some of the teachers who say, it's my way or the highway. Okay, no questions. And this is why we are left behind. Because we don't encourage critical thinking, we don't encourage people, no creativity, no dialogue, and so on. And this is why we are easily invaded, okay, intellectually, because we don't have the tools, okay, that equipped us, from all these wrong ideas coming to our cultures and so on. Like as you said, the Sikh, for example. I'm sure there's a lot of dialogue happening at home, talking about the idea of what? Who you are. And you need to be proud of who you are. And I'm sure these people are doing it out of full, dedication and out of full understanding that this is the right thing. Whether we agree or we don't agree, this is another story. But what I'm saying is that, when you try to talk to your kids, to your students as educators, about why we follow such a thing, why it is not, followed, why we don't have this, I'm sure, we don't have to worry about globalization. We don't have to worry about the consequences of any kind of...
So globalization should not be a threat to us.
No.
Our doors are open.
Yes.
And we'll take the good things about
Exactly.
globalization and we'll hold on to. And this is the part where we need to discuss about moderation.
Yes.
And having a balance between the two. Between our culture, our beloved culture, and also accepting the new trends, the globalization, anything new that will help to make our life much easier.
For sure. If we don't, talk, if we don't be open-minded about, different cultures and so on, you definitely will not advance because, look, this is a fact. We are left behind when it comes to a lot of things. So you need to learn from other people. And then maybe from there, you can advance. So you need to have this interaction with other people. Okay? But we also need to be equipped with deciding what is good for us and what is not good for us.
Yeah.
And the idea of being influential, rather than being influenced. And this is a big problem. This is why we have a lot of youth. In fact, why we have to blame all the time the youth, We have people who are supposed to be mature adults and so on, and they still have the same wrong ideas, I don't want to all the time blame, the young people, but also we have people who supposed to be aware of a lot of things, but in reality they are not, and they are contributing actually to the damage, that we are having nowadays, parents. Not all the parents, but some of the parents, some of the people who are in charge, they need to also help in maintaining and preserving our culture.
Ahmed, some of the neighboring countries, they are suffering their cultures to be extinct, and slowly it is vanishing.
Yeah.
Are we facing the same threat, Ahmed, today, in your opinion?
Well, till now, we are still, in a safe, position, But if we don't pay attention to what's happening around us, especially, as you said, this is happening around us, And if we don't plan from the beginning that this could happen to us, then we will join the crowd. And this is very, very easy to happen. But we need to work collectively, Families, communities, states, they need to work together to form a kind of system to make sure that we accept from our side. There's not an issue to be, accepting and adopting from other cultures. And open-minded. But at the same time, we need to preserve the identity that we have. We have an identity, and we need to be proud of that identity. And without that kind of identity, we'll be lost. And this is not a good thing at all.
Dear listeners, thank you very much for tuning in on 90.4 FM in your program The Choice with me, Hatem Al-Absalam, and my dear brother Ahmed Al-Matani. And today we were discussing culture and globalization. See you tomorrow, inshallah, with a brand new episode. And you'll find this episode on the SoundCloud tomorrow, inshallah. And for now, we're signing off. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.